Hello Dragons, and welcome to this instructional video for Lesson 6 Part 2, Protections in the Bill of Rights. The main idea behind the civics lesson is the Bill of Rights spells out individual freedoms, protections against government abuse of power, and the rights of citizens accused of crimes. With that in mind, by the end of watching this video, you will be able to define the freedoms that are protected by the First Amendment, summarize the amendments that protect against abuse of power by the government, explain how the rights of the accused are protected by the Bill of Rights, and describe the rights protected by the 9th and 10th Amendments. Now that the outcomes for this lesson have been shared with you, let's get started. When the first 10 amendments were added to the Constitution, they were intended to protect citizens' rights against actions by the national government. The Bill of Rights did not change any basic principles in the Constitution. Instead, these 10 amendments spell out the basic rights that are protected under our form of government. These rights fall into three main categories: individual freedoms, protections against government abuse of power, and rights of citizens accused of crimes. Picture what your life might be like if the following were true. You could be arrested for criticizing a government official. The government could decide which books or magazines may be published and which movies or television shows you may watch. Daily newspapers could publish no articles critical of the government and no political cartoons that poke fun at government officials, or a person could be jailed because of religious beliefs. Perhaps you are asking yourself, what is the point of supposing things that could never happen? The answer is that they do happen. Millions of people in the world today are denied the rights that we Americans often take for granted. These rights include a number of freedoms protected by the First Amendment. The First Amendment provides for freedom of religion. Every American is free to follow the religion of his or her choice, or not to practice any religion at all. Also, the First Amendment establishes separation of church and state, the situation in which the government may not favor any religion or establish an official religion. This was the first time in history that a government had taken such a step. With separation of church and state, religion may never be used as a test for deciding who may hold office or who may vote. When people say, "This is a free country, so I can say what I want," they are referring to freedom of speech, another right protected by the First Amendment. As an American, you have the right to speak and write freely, to say what you believe. Does freedom of speech mean that you may say anything, whenever and wherever you please? No. You are not free to slander another person, telling lies that damage his or her reputation. However, you are free to express opinions no matter how unpopular, and to write articles, stories, and poems no matter how much other people may dislike them or disagree with them. As you learned in Lesson 5, the belief in freedom of the press took root during the colonial period, especially through the Zenger case. That belief became a reality with the First Amendment, which prevents the government from deciding what may be printed. Together with freedom of speech, freedom of the press guarantees that people may criticize the government without fearing arrest. In many countries today, the government controls newspapers and radio or television stations. In the United States, the First Amendment helps guarantee that citizens can get information and hear differing opinions. Like freedom of speech, freedom of the press has its limits. For instance, a newspaper is not free to libel or print lies about a person because this would unfairly damage his or her reputation. Also, both freedom of speech and freedom of the press may be limited when what is said or written endangers the lives of citizens, such as when a person falsely shouts fire in a theater and causes a panic. Under the First Amendment, citizens also have the right to assemble or meet together. For instance, a group may hold a demonstration to protest a new law as long as their demonstration is peaceful and does not violate the rights of other citizens. Perhaps you've heard people make statements such as, "I don't like that law, but there is nothing I can do about it." According to the First Amendment, there is something they can do about it. Any citizen or group of citizens has the right to ask a government representative to change a law, to make a new law, or other ways to solve a problem that may arise. A citizen may make such a request by writing a letter, by telephoning, or by sending a petition, a request signed by many citizens, to a representative in Congress. The Second, Third, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments all help protect citizens from abuse of power by police and judges or by any other government officials. These amendments stem from the colonists' experience under the rule of England. The Second Amendment deals with the rights of citizens to own guns. The amendment states, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." When this amendment was written, the American Revolution was fresh in the minds of citizens. Americans remembered that militias, or groups of citizens armed to defend themselves, had played an important role in achieving victory over the powerful British. Now that the United States was forming a strong government of its own, many people felt this amendment provided a vital protection against abuses of government power. Throughout our nation's history, citizens have debated the exact meaning of the Second Amendment. Do Americans have a constitutional right to own guns for personal use? Should the government have the right to restrict the sale and use of guns? These questions are still being debated today. During the colonial period, England had allowed English soldiers to use colonists' homes as living quarters. The Third Amendment states that the government must obtain the owner's consent first. During wartime, a citizen may have to provide soldiers with lodging, but only if Congress passes laws requiring it.
Open up, this is the police. We have a warrant to search your house.
You have probably seen movies in which police officers say this when entering the home of a suspect. Under the Fourth Amendment, officers cannot search a citizen or a citizen's home without a valid reason. Usually they must obtain a search warrant, written permission from a judge, to search citizens, their homes, or their belongings. To obtain a warrant, the police must convince a judge that they are likely to find evidence of a crime. During the years leading up to the American Revolution, as tensions between England and the colonies increased, Parliament allowed officers to make unlimited searches and seizures. Through the Fourth Amendment, Americans were guarding against any such abuse of power by the new government. May the government take away your property to build a freeway, subway, or other public project? Yes, it may. The government has the power of eminent domain, the power to take private property for public use. However, the Fifth Amendment protects citizens from an abuse of this power by requiring the government to pay owners a fair price for their property. When arresting a person suspected of a crime, a police officer makes a statement like the following: "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You are entitled to have an attorney present when you are questioned. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you at public expense." This statement is part of the Miranda warning, which is named after a man who was arrested without being informed of his rights. As a result of a Supreme Court decision in 1966, police officers must state the Miranda warning to anyone they arrest. The rights of the accused are spelled out in the Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth Amendments. These amendments reflect English legal tradition dating back to the Magna Carta, which stated that no person could be deprived of life, liberty, or property except by the law of the land. The Constitution continues English tradition by stating that citizens are entitled to due process of law, a process by which the government must treat accused persons fairly according to rules established by law. People accused of crimes have rights under the Constitution. The Miranda warning mentions the right to remain silent because the Fifth Amendment says that nobody may be forced to be a witness against himself. This is why accused persons sometimes say, "I take the Fifth," or "I refuse to answer on the grounds that it may incriminate me or make me appear guilty." In some countries, police use torture or other methods to pressure citizens into confessing to crimes. Under the Fifth Amendment, any confessions must be freely given, not forced. The Fifth Amendment also states that persons accused of committing serious crimes, such as murder, must be indicted or accused by a grand jury. A grand jury determines whether there is enough evidence to put the person on trial. Citizens are also protected from double jeopardy, being placed on trial twice for the same crime. Thus, a person who has been found not guilty of a crime in a federal court cannot be put on trial again for the same offense. A key element of due process of law is trial by jury. The Sixth Amendment guarantees a citizen's right to a speedy, public, and fair trial in any case involving a crime. A person may not be tried in secret or kept in jail for a long time awaiting trial. An accused person has the right to the advice of a lawyer. An accused person also has the right to know what the accusations are and the right to ask questions of any witnesses during the trial. The Seventh Amendment permits jury trials in cases where there are conflicts over property or money, as long as the value in dispute is over $20. The Sixth and Seventh Amendments reflect the belief that trial by jury is important if people are to have trust and confidence in the law. The work of the courts is open to public view and public participation. When people serve as jurors, they help to make sure that their fellow citizens are treated fairly. The Eighth Amendment protects accused persons from unfair treatment both before and after trial. Instead of having to stay in jail until a trial, an accused person may be allowed to deposit with the court a certain amount of money, called bail. This money is a pledge that the person will appear at the trial. The Eighth Amendment forbids the amount of bail from being unfairly high. When the person appears at the trial, the bail is returned. This system protects the accused person from long-term imprisonment before being convicted of a crime. The Eighth Amendment also protects people from cruel and unusual punishments. Whipping, branding, and other physical punishments were common in England and in America during the 1700s. The debate continues today over whether the death penalty should be considered cruel and unusual punishment. One of the objections to adding a Bill of Rights had been that all rights could not possibly be included. James Madison, however, had provided a solution to this problem. Madison had suggested an amendment stating that citizens' rights are not limited to the ones listed in the Constitution. This proposal became the Ninth Amendment. The 10th Amendment settles a question arising from Article 1 of the Constitution. Article 1 describes which powers Congress has and does not have, and which powers are denied to the states. But who has the powers that the Constitution does not mention? The 10th Amendment declares that those powers belong to state governments or to the people. So that's the way it is with Lesson 6, Part 2, Protections in the Bill of Rights. At this point, you should know that some amendments contain several provisions, while others have only one or two. Some amendments guarantee individual freedoms, while others protect citizens from government abuse of power and ensure individuals accused of crimes are not treated unfairly. And the Bill of Rights originally protected citizens against actions by the federal government, but did not extend to state actions. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to have the entire catalog of civics videos available at your fingertips. Click the subscribe button and then click the follow bell to receive notifications as to when the channel is updated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in class, Dragons.